Luna Celeste Foster watched Alpha King Theron Pierce claim his territory through blood and ritual, but her eyes weren't on the powerful shifter commanding every wolf's attention. They were on the girl in midnight blue who stood like a ghost at her own father's coronation, invisible to a pack that worshipped strength above all else. The Grand Moon ceremony should have been magnificent. Hundreds of werewolves from every western pack had gathered in the sacred grove, their eyes glowing amber in the moonlight as they watched their new supreme alpha carve his mark into the heart tree. The ancient ritual demanded blood, demanded power, demanded absolute submission from every wolf present. And they gave it willingly, their collective howl shaking the forest as Theron Pierce raised the ceremonial blade above his head. All except one. Luna adjusted her position behind the translation booth, her human eyes picking up details that the pack-minded wolves missed. Princess Olivia Pierce stood at the edge of the ceremonial circle, her hands folded neatly in front of her midnight blue dress, her face a mask of polite attention. But Luna could read the signs others couldn't, the way Olivia's fingers moved in small, unconscious patterns against her skirt. Sign language. She was translating the ceremony for herself, because no one else bothered to. The Alpha King calls for the pack's loyalty, Luna whispered into her headset, providing simultaneous translation for the few humans in attendance. But her voice caught as she watched Olivia flinch when her father's triumphant roar echoed through the grove. The girl couldn't hear it, but she felt the vibrations through the ground, felt the supernatural energy crackling in the air as 500 werewolves pledged their lives to the Pierce bloodline. Everyone except his own daughter. Luna had been working with the supernatural community for 3 years, ever since her linguistics degree and natural talent for sign language had made her invaluable as a human interpreter. She'd seen prejudice before, werewolves weren't known for their tolerance of weakness. But this was different. This was a father ignoring his child at the moment of his greatest triumph. The ceremony continued with speeches from pack leaders, each one praising Theron's strength, his tactical brilliance, his ability to unite the fractured western territories under one rule. Luna translated mechanically, but her attention kept drifting to Olivia. The princess was beautiful in the way that all werewolf royalty were beautiful, tall and graceful with dark hair that caught the moonlight and pale skin that seemed to glow. But there was something haunting about her stillness, something that made Luna's chest tight with recognition. She knew what it felt like to be the outsider. The one who didn't quite fit. When Alpha King Theron began his acceptance speech, Luna noticed Olivia's lips moving slightly. She was reading lips, following along with a conversation she couldn't hear, in a ceremony that celebrated everything she could never be. A werewolf's power came from the pack mind link, from the ability to share thoughts and emotions with their family. Without that connection, Luna made a decision that would change everything. She stepped away from her translation booth during a particularly long howl of approval from the crowd. The wolves were lost in their pack euphoria, their minds linked in celebration. No one noticed as Luna made her way through the crowd toward the lonely figure in midnight blue. "Your father's speech is very moving," Luna signed, positioning herself where Olivia could see her hands clearly. The princess startled, her composure cracking for just a moment before she glanced around nervously. "You shouldn't be here," she signed back, her movements quick and uncertain. "This is pack territory." "I'm the official translator," Luna signed with a small smile. "I have diplomatic immunity." For the first time that evening, Olivia's face showed genuine emotion, surprise that melted into something that might have been relief. "You know sign language." "I know several varieties. Including the one your mother taught you." The words hit their target. Olivia's hands stilled completely, and Luna could see the carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. "How did you?" Luna Queen Isabella was famous for her linguistic abilities. She spoke 7 languages and created a modified sign system for wolves who lost their hearing in battle. "You used some of her innovations." Tears gathered in Olivia's eyes, but she blinked them back. Royal werewolves didn't cry in public. No one remembers that about her. "I do." Luna stepped closer, lowering her voice even though she continued to sign. "I also remember that she died protecting the pack from rogues. And that you were with her." The ceremony was reaching its crescendo behind them, Theron's voice booming across the grove as he called for the final pledge of loyalty. But Luna only had eyes for the broken princess in front of her, whose careful mask was finally beginning to slip. The attack took everything, Olivia signed, her movements sharp with old pain. My hearing, my connection to the pack link, my mother. It left me as something that shouldn't exist, a wolf who can't hear her pack, a princess who can't feel her people's thoughts, That doesn't make you less than them. Doesn't it? Olivia's smile was bitter. Watch. She gestured toward the crowd of celebrating werewolves, their minds so intertwined that they moved like a single organism. When Theron raised his arms, they raised theirs. When he howled, they howled in perfect harmony. It was beautiful and terrifying, the absolute unity that human minds could never achieve. I can't be part of that, Olivia continued. I'm deaf to their thoughts, blind to their emotions. To them, I'm not really alive, You're alive to me, Luna said aloud, forgetting to sign in her urgency to be heard. The words carried further than she intended. Several wolves near them turned, their enhanced hearing picking up the human voice during a moment of reverent silence. Luna felt their eyes on her, felt the subtle shift in the crowd's attention as whispers began to spread. Someone should tell the human that ceremony protocol prohibits. Is that the translator talking to the princess? Why is Princess Olivia making hand gestures? The whispers grew louder, drawing more attention. Luna watched in growing horror as the disturbance rippled outward through the pack, disrupting the sacred ceremony. At the heart tree, Alpha King Theron's speech faltered as he sensed his people's distraction. His golden eyes found Luna immediately, then shifted to his daughter. The temperature in the grove seemed to drop 10 degrees. Interpreter Foster, Theron's voice cut through the whispers like a blade. You will explain this interruption. Luna felt 500 pairs of eyes on her, felt the weight of supernatural predators assessing a potential threat. But when she looked at Olivia, at the terror and shame written across the girl's face, her fear transformed into something fiercer. Your Majesty, Luna said, stepping protectively in front of Olivia. I was providing translation services to ensure all members of your family could participate in this historic moment. The crowd stirred uneasily. No one spoke to the Alpha King like that. No one questioned his family dynamics in public. Theron's eyes flashed dangerous amber. My daughter requires no assistance. She understands her place. Standing alone at the edge of her own father's coronation. The words left Luna's mouth before she could stop them. Invisible to a pack that should cherish her as their princess? The grove went dead silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Alpha King Theron Pierce stepped away from the heart tree, his massive frame radiating the kind of power that could flatten mountains. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had never been questioned in his life. You forget yourself, human. My daughter's condition is not a matter for public discussion. Her condition? Luna's voice rose with indignation. You mean her deafness? The injury she sustained defending this pack alongside her mother? Luna, please stop, Olivia signed frantically behind her. You don't understand what you're doing. But Luna was past the point of caution. 3 years of watching werewolves dismiss anyone who didn't fit their narrow definition of strength had finally pushed her too far. I understand perfectly, she said, still facing Theron but speaking loud enough for the entire pack to hear. I understand that Princess Olivia lost her hearing and her pack connection in the same attack that killed Luna Queen Isabella. I understand that instead of honoring her sacrifice, you've allowed her to become invisible. And I understand that your pack follows your lead in pretending she doesn't exist. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Around them, the werewolves shifted restlessly, torn between their ingrained loyalty to their alpha and the uncomfortable truth in Luna's words. Theron's control was legendary, but Luna could see cracks forming in his composure. You know nothing about pack dynamics or the responsibilities of leadership. I know about family, Luna shot back. And I know about choosing to see the people who matter. Luna, stop, Olivia's hands moved desperately. You don't understand what I am. This time, Luna turned to look at her, and something in Olivia's expression made her stomach drop. There was more here, something deeper than simple deafness or even severed pack bonds. What do you mean? Luna asked, automatically switching back to sign language. Olivia glanced at her father, then back at Luna, her face pale with an old terror. The attack didn't just take my hearing. It broke something fundamental. The pack mind link isn't just damaged, it's gone. Completely. Forever, So? That doesn't make you. It makes me an anomaly, Olivia's signs were sharp, desperate. Werewolves who can't connect to the pack mind don't exist in our laws, our traditions, our understanding of what we are. I'm not just deaf, Luna. According to everything we believe about werewolf nature, I shouldn't be alive, The words hit Luna like a physical blow. She turned back to Theron, seeing him with new eyes. This wasn't just about a father's shame or a pack's prejudice. This was about a girl who had become something their society had no framework for understanding. Is that why you ignore her? Luna asked, her voice quieter now but no less challenging. Because she doesn't fit your definition of what a werewolf should be? Alpha King Theron's expression was unreadable, but Luna caught something in his golden eyes. Pain, maybe, or fear carefully hidden behind layers of authority. My daughter's situation is complex, he said finally. There are aspects you cannot comprehend. Then help me understand, Luna replied. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've decided she's broken instead of different. And that's not leadership, that's abandonment. The words echoed through the grove, and Luna realized she had just publicly challenged the most powerful werewolf in the Western Territories. About his parenting. At his coronation ceremony. She was probably about to die. But as the silence stretched and the pack waited for their alpha's response, Luna felt Olivia's hand slip into hers. The princess's fingers were trembling, but her grip was strong. Whatever happened next, Luna realized, she wouldn't face it alone. And neither would Olivia. Chapter 2. The Alpha King's study was a monument to werewolf power. Massive leather-bound tomes lined shelves that stretched to the cathedral ceiling, and the skulls of ancient enemies decorated the stone walls like trophies. But as Luna sat across from Theron Pierce 3 days after the ceremony, all she could focus on was the single sheet of parchment trembling in his hands. The paper was covered in elegant script that seemed to flow like water across the page, each symbol more beautiful and complex than any human writing Luna had ever seen. Ancient wolf script, she realized, a language so old that most modern werewolves couldn't read it. But Olivia could, apparently. And what she'd written had reduced the most powerful alpha in the Western Territories to this, a father staring at his daughter's words with something that looked dangerously close to desperation. She says she's considering renouncing her heritage, Theron said finally, his voice carefully controlled. Living permanently among humans. Luna kept her expression neutral, though her heart clenched. She hadn't seen Olivia since the confrontation at the ceremony, hadn't known if the princess was safe or if Theron had punished her for Luna's interference. Now she knew, Olivia was safe, but she was also planning to disappear. What exactly does that mean for a werewolf? Luna asked carefully. Theron set the letter down with the reverence of someone handling a death certificate. It means severing the last threads that connect her to our world. Werewolves who renounce their heritage undergo a ritual that burns away any remaining supernatural abilities. They become fully human, but the process. He paused, running a hand through his dark hair. It's irreversible. And often fatal. Fatal? The wolf spirit doesn't separate from the human soul easily. Many who attempt renunciation die in the process. Those who survive are forever changed. They lose their enhanced senses, their healing abilities, their extended lifespan. They become mortal in every sense of the word. Luna studied his face, seeing the careful mask he wore to hide his pain. But she'd be free. She'd be dead to us. The words came out harsher than he intended, and Theron immediately softened his tone. Free, yes. But at a cost that would destroy her. As opposed to the slow destruction she's experiencing now? The question hung in the air between them, and Luna watched as the Alpha King's composure finally cracked. For just a moment, she saw past the supernatural power and political authority to the father underneath, a man who had no idea how to save his daughter from a fate he couldn't understand. "I brought you here," Theron said, his voice barely above a whisper, "because you're the only person who's spoken to Olivia in 3 years. The only one who's made her smile. If there's any chance of reaching her, of convincing her that she has a place in our world. You want me to talk her out of renouncing her heritage. I want you to help me understand her." He gestured toward the letter. This script, Olivia learned it from her mother. Isabella believed that knowledge of the old ways might help Olivia find her place among us. But I can barely read 3 words of it, and my daughter communicates in a language I don't speak. Luna looked at the beautiful, flowing script and felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just about translation anymore. This was about a family torn apart by tragedy and pride, about a girl who felt so alone that she'd rather die than continue living in silence. "I'll help," she said simply. "But I have conditions." Theron's eyebrows rose. Humans didn't typically negotiate with Alpha Kings. "I want complete access to Olivia. No restrictions on when or where we can meet. I want information about werewolf culture, laws, and traditions, everything I need to understand the world she's trying to leave. And I want you to learn sign language." Sign language? If you want to communicate with your daughter, you need to learn her language. Not just expect her to read your lips and guess at your meaning. For a moment, Luna thought he might refuse. Alpha Kings didn't take orders from humans. But then Theron nodded slowly, the gesture of a desperate father willing to try anything. "When do we start?" The lessons began that afternoon in the same study where they'd made their agreement. Luna had expected learning sign language to be difficult for a werewolf whose communication had always been enhanced by supernatural senses and pack mental links. She hadn't expected Theron to be quite so terrible at it. "No, your hand position is completely wrong," Luna said for the 10th time, watching as the Alpha King mangled what should have been a simple greeting. "You're signing angry bathroom instead of good morning." Theron growled in frustration, a sound that vibrated through Luna's bones and made her very aware that she was alone with a predator who could tear her apart without effort. But she'd been working with werewolves long enough to recognize the difference between threatening growls and frustrated ones. "Your fingers need to be more relaxed," she continued, reaching out to adjust his hand position. Sign language is about flow and rhythm, not force. The moment her human skin touched his, Theron went very still. Luna looked up to find his golden eyes studying her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You're not afraid of me," he said, and it wasn't quite a question. "Should I be?" "Most humans are. Even the ones who work with our kind regularly. They can sense the predator underneath the human appearance." Luna considered this, her hands still guiding his into the correct position for the sign they'd been practicing. "I can sense it. But I also see the father who's trying to learn his daughter's language. The man who's willing to look foolish if it means reaching her." Something shifted in Theron's expression, but before he could respond, the study door opened and a tall man with silver-streaked hair strode in without knocking. "Brother," the newcomer said, his voice carrying the kind of authority that expected immediate attention. "We need to discuss the council's decision." Theron stepped back from Luna, his expression shuddering closed. "Marcus. I told you I was not to be disturbed. The Pack Council won't wait for your convenience." Marcus Pierce's eyes flicked dismissively over Luna before returning to his brother. "They've made their position clear. Olivia cannot be your heir. Ancient law requires Pack leaders to maintain mental connections with their people. A deaf wolf who can't access the Pack link is an impossibility." Luna felt her temper spike at the casual cruelty in Marcus's tone, but Theron's response was controlled, diplomatic. "The council serves at my pleasure, not the other way around." "The council serves the Pack," Marcus corrected. "And the Pack needs strong leadership. Leadership that can actually communicate with its members." He gestured toward Luna. "Hiring human interpreters and indulging Olivia's fantasy that she belongs among us isn't strength, Theron. It's weakness. Careful, brother." But Marcus was past the point of caution. Vladimir Blackthorn has been spreading word that your bloodline is cursed. That Olivia's condition proves the Pierce family is no longer fit to rule. The other packs are starting to listen. Luna watched the exchange with growing understanding. This wasn't just about family dynamics or personal prejudice. This was about politics, about power, about the delicate balance that held the werewolf world together. And Olivia was caught in the middle of it all. What does the council propose? Theron asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Name me as your heir. Let Olivia live quietly, away from pack politics. Find her a human husband if you must, but stop pretending she can lead werewolves. The silence that followed was deafening. Luna could practically feel the supernatural tension crackling between the two brothers, could see the careful political calculations behind each man's eyes. And if I refuse? Marcus's smile was sharp as a blade. Then the council may be forced to consider whether your judgment has been compromised by grief. Whether the pack would be better served by new leadership. It was a threat, Luna realized. Politely phrased and wrapped in concern for the pack's welfare, but a threat nonetheless. Marcus was challenging his brother's right to rule, using Olivia as the excuse. Get out, Theron said softly. Brother. Get out. Marcus left, but not before shooting Luna a look that promised future unpleasantness. When the door closed behind him, Theron stood frozen for a long moment, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. How long have you been Alpha King? Luna asked quietly. 15 years. I took over after our father died in a territorial dispute with the Eastern Packs. And Marcus? Has been waiting for his chance to rule ever since. Theron's laugh was bitter. He's not wrong about the politics. Vladimir Blackthorn has been looking for weakness in our bloodline since the day I defeated his challenge for leadership. Olivia's condition gives him the excuse he needs to question my fitness as Alpha King. Luna processed this information, fitting pieces together in her mind. What happens if you lose the support of the Pack Council? Civil war. The Western territories would split along family lines, and every alpha with ambition would see it as their chance to claim territory. Thousands would die. So you're caught between saving your daughter and saving your people. I'm caught between choosing which child to sacrifice. The words came out raw, unguarded. Marcus isn't evil, Luna. He'd make a competent leader. But naming him as my heir means accepting that Olivia has no place in our world. It means watching her choose death over a life where she's invisible. Luna stood and walked to the window, looking out at the sprawling grounds of the Pierce estate. Somewhere in this vast territory was a girl who felt so isolated that she'd rather die than continue living. And here was her father, caught between impossible choices, trying to learn sign language as if the right-hand gesture could somehow fix everything that was broken. Tell me about the attack, Luna said suddenly. The one that killed your wife and injured Olivia. Theron went very still. Why? Because I need to understand what really happened to her. The medical details, the extent of the damage. If I'm going to help Olivia find her place in your world, I need to know exactly what she's dealing with. For a moment, Luna thought he might refuse. The loss of his mate was clearly a wound that hadn't healed, a source of pain he kept carefully locked away. But then he began to speak, his voice hollow with memory. It was supposed to be a routine patrol. Isabella often took Olivia with her when she visited the border territories. She wanted our daughter to understand all aspects of pack leadership. They were checking the northern boundaries when the rogues attacked. Rogues? Werewolves who've been cast out of their packs, usually for crimes too severe for exile. They band together sometimes, raiding pack territories for supplies or revenge. This group had been hitting border settlements for months. Luna turned back to face him. How many? 6. Against Isabella and Olivia. Theron's hands clenched. My mate was a formidable fighter, but she was protecting a child. The rogues overwhelmed them. But Olivia survived. Barely. When our patrol found them, Isabella was dead and Olivia was unconscious with massive head trauma. The healer said it was a miracle she lived at all. Luna studied his face, reading the pain and guilt written in every line. You blame yourself. I should have been there. Should have insisted on sending guards. Should have, he broke off, running both hands through his hair. The rogues were specifically targeting Isabella. They knew her patrol routes, knew when she'd be vulnerable. It wasn't random. Assassination? That's what I believed. Isabella had made enemies among the more traditional packs with her progressive policies. Her support for werewolf-human cooperation, her advocacy for pack members who didn't fit the typical mold, it made her a target. Luna felt pieces clicking together in her mind, but the picture they were forming didn't quite make sense yet. And Olivia's injuries? Severe head trauma from silver-laced claws. The rogues used weapons specifically designed to cause permanent damage to werewolves. Silver disrupts our healing abilities, makes injuries that would normally heal in hours or days permanent instead. Silver-laced claws aren't standard rogue equipment. Theron's eyes sharpened. No, they're not. They're expensive, difficult to make, and require knowledge of werewolf physiology that most rogues don't possess. Someone funded them. Someone with resources and specific knowledge about how to hurt werewolves permanently. That was my conclusion as well. But we never found proof. The rogues died in the fighting, and any evidence died with them. Luna was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she'd learned. The attack hadn't been random. It had been planned, funded, and executed with surgical precision. Isabella had died, but Olivia had survived, barely, and with injuries that specifically targeted the aspects of werewolf nature that would make her an effective leader. What if the real target wasn't your wife? Luna said slowly. What if it was Olivia? Theron went very still. What do you mean? Think about it. 6 rogues with silver weapons attack the Alpha King's maid and heir. Isabella dies fighting to protect her daughter, a tragedy, but not the end of your bloodline. Olivia survives, but with injuries that make her unsuitable to lead. Injuries that specifically target her ability to connect with the pack mind link. The color drained from Theron's face as the implications hit him. You're suggesting someone deliberately tried to cripple my daughter's ability to rule. I'm suggesting someone tried to destroy your lineage without actually killing your heir. Dead martyrs inspire loyalty. Broken heirs who can't fulfill their duties. They inspire doubt. Luna walked back to where Theron stood frozen, watching as her words reshaped his understanding of that terrible night 3 years ago. Your wife died protecting Olivia from an attack designed to leave your daughter alive but permanently damaged. Unable to access the pack link, unable to lead, unable to carry on the Pierce bloodline's rule. But who would? Theron stopped, his eyes going hard with realization. Vladimir Blackthorn. He's your rival? More than that. He challenged me for leadership 15 years ago and lost. His pack was absorbed into mine, his territory given to loyal alphas. He spent every year since then looking for ways to undermine my authority. Luna nodded. The pieces were falling into place now, forming a picture of conspiracy and long-term planning that made her stomach turn. And now he's spreading rumors that your daughter's condition proves your bloodline is weak. Convenient timing. The bastard. Theron's voice carried the kind of rage that made the windows rattle. He orchestrated the whole thing. Had Isabella killed and Olivia crippled, then waited for the political fallout to destroy us. Can you prove it? Not yet. But if you're right, if this was all part of Vladimir's plan to claim leadership, then we need to move carefully. He's had 3 years to position his allies, to spread his poison. A direct accusation without proof would only give him ammunition. Luna felt a chill run down her spine as she realized what they were really facing. This wasn't just about family dynamics or ancient laws. This was about a calculated attempt to destroy the Pierce bloodline and claim power through manipulation and murder. And Olivia was still in danger. We need to tell her, Luna said. Olivia deserves to know that her condition wasn't just bad luck. That someone deliberately tried to destroy her future. Do we? Theron's voice was hollow. Would knowing that her injuries were intentional make her suffering any easier to bear? Would it change the fact that she can't access the pack link, can't fulfill her role as heir? It might change how she sees herself. Right now, she thinks she's broken, defective, a burden on your leadership. But if she knew that her condition was the result of a deliberate attack, that she survived an assassination attempt designed to cripple your bloodline, maybe she'd see herself differently. As what? As a survivor. As someone strong enough to endure an attack meant to destroy her. As your daughter, the rightful heir to the Pierce bloodline, injured but not defeated. Luna watched as understanding dawned in Theron's golden eyes. His daughter wasn't broken, she was wounded. And there was a difference, one that could change everything about how Olivia saw her place in the world. Where is she now? Luna asked. The old tower, most likely. It's where she goes when she wants to be alone. The library there has most of Isabella's books, including her research on ancient werewolf languages and customs. Then that's where we start. But Theron, if I'm right about this, if Vladimir really is behind the attack, then he won't stop with political maneuvering. He's invested too much in destroying your family to give up now. The Alpha King's expression hardened into something that reminded Luna exactly how dangerous he could be when threatened. Then we'll be ready for him. But first, we save my daughter. As they left the study together, Luna couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something much larger and more dangerous than either of them realized. Vladimir Blackthorne had spent 3 years positioning himself to claim power, 3 years watching the Pierce family tear itself apart from the inside. He wouldn't give up his plans easily. But for the first time since the ceremony, Luna felt something that might have been hope. Olivia wasn't broken, she was the survivor of an assassination attempt, the heir who'd refused to die despite everything that had been done to her. And if Luna was right about the attack, if they could prove that Olivia's condition was the result of conspiracy rather than fate, then maybe they could give the princess something she'd been missing for 3 years. A reason to fight back. Chapter 3. The old tower had been Isabella's sanctuary, and now it was Olivia's prison. As Luna climbed the winding stone steps with Theron close behind, she could feel the weight of centuries in these walls, the accumulated power of werewolf royalty, the secrets that had shaped kingdoms and toppled empires. But when they reached the heavy oak door at the top, it was silence that greeted them, thick and profound as a grave. Theron raised his hand to knock, then stopped. Through the door, they could hear something unexpected, the soft sound of brush strokes against canvas, rhythmic and purposeful. She's painting, he said, wonder in his voice. She hasn't painted since. Since the attack? Since her mother died. Isabella was an artist. She taught Olivia that painting was another form of language, a way to speak when words weren't enough. Luna pressed her ear to the door, listening to the gentle whisper of bristles against canvas. There was something almost ritualistic about the sound, something that made her think of prayers and spells and the old magic that still lived in quiet places. We should knock, she said softly. But before Theron could respond, the painting sound stopped. Footsteps approached the door, and then it swung open to reveal Olivia, paint-stained and beautiful in the afternoon light streaming through the tower windows. Father, she signed, surprise flickering across her face before she noticed Luna. And our diplomatic interpreter. Hello, Olivia, Luna signed back. May we come in? For a moment, the princess hesitated, and Luna could see the war between hope and fear playing out in her dark eyes. Hope won, barely, and Olivia stepped back to let them enter. The tower room was a wonderland of controlled chaos. Easels stood like sentries around the circular space, each holding a canvas in various stages of completion. Paint tubes and brushes covered every available surface, and the air smelled of turpentine and something else, something wild and electric that made Luna's skin prickle with recognition. But it was the paintings themselves that stole her breath. They were unlike anything Luna had ever seen. The colors seemed to move on the canvas, shifting and flowing as if the paint were somehow alive. One depicted a forest scene where the trees appeared to sway in an unfelt breeze, their branches reaching towards something just beyond the edge of the frame. Another showed a pack of wolves running across a starlit plain, their forms so realistic that Luna half expected them to leap from the canvas. "These are incredible," Luna breathed, moving closer to study the paintings. "The detail, the movement, how do you achieve such realism?" Olivia's hands moved in quick, nervous gestures. Asterisk, they're not meant to be realistic. They're meant to be felt. Asterisk. Felt? Instead of answering, Olivia walked to one of the completed paintings. A portrait of a woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair that Luna immediately recognized as Isabella. The princess hesitated for a moment, then placed her palm flat against the canvas. The change was instantaneous. The painting began to glow with soft, golden light, and suddenly the tower room was filled with warmth and the scent of jasmine. Luna felt a rush of emotions that weren't her own: love, pride, fierce protectiveness, and an overwhelming sense of maternal devotion. "My God," Theron whispered, his voice thick with tears. "Isabella. I can feel her." The glow faded after a few seconds, leaving the three of them standing in stunned silence. Luna's heart was racing, her mind struggling to process what she'd just experienced. "I discovered it by accident," Olivia signed, her movements quick and embarrassed. About a year after the attack. "I was painting Mother's portrait, crying over it, and when I touched the canvas to wipe away a tear, suddenly I could feel her again. Her love, her memories of me as a child." "How is this possible?" Luna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know. The healers say my connection to the pack mind link is completely severed. But somehow, I can put emotions and memories into my paintings. When other wolves touch them, they experience what I felt while painting." Luna looked around the room with new understanding. These weren't just paintings, they were emotional repositories, memories made manifest in pigment and canvas. And Olivia had been creating them alone, with no one to share the wonder of what she'd discovered. "Have you shown these to anyone else?" Luna asked. Olivia's expression darkened. "Who would I show them to? Who would believe that the broken princess has found a new way to communicate? Uncle Marcus says I'm delusional, that I'm creating fantasies to cope with my disability." "Marcus knows about this?" Theron's voice carried a dangerous edge. "He came to see me last week. Said the Pack Council was concerned about my mental state, that reports of me talking to paintings were disturbing the Pack Elders." Olivia's hands trembled slightly as she signed. He suggested that perhaps it would be better if I stopped painting altogether. For the good of the family. Luna felt anger surge through her chest, hot and protective. She was beginning to understand the true scope of Marcus's manipulation. Not content with political maneuvering, he was systematically isolating Olivia from any source of comfort or connection. "Show me another painting," Luna said suddenly. "One that contains a specific memory." Olivia hesitated, then walked to an easel near the window where a canvas sat covered by a paint-stained cloth. She pulled the cloth away to reveal a scene that made Luna's breath catch: the ceremonial grove where Theron's coronation had taken place, painted in vivid detail from Olivia's perspective. But this version showed something the actual ceremony hadn't. Threads of golden light connecting every wolf to every other wolf, a visual representation of the pack mind link that Olivia could see but not access. "This is what I see when I watch the pack together," Olivia signed. "The connections I can never be part of." Luna reached toward the painting, then paused. "May I?" Olivia nodded, and Luna pressed her palm to the canvas. The world exploded into sensation. She felt the crushing loneliness of standing surrounded by hundreds of minds that might as well have been on another planet. She felt the weight of being invisible, the pain of watching her father celebrate with people who would never truly see her. But underneath it all, Luna sensed something else, a different kind of connection, deeper and more complex than the simple pack bonds the other wolves shared. When the vision faded, Luna stared at Olivia with new understanding. "You haven't lost your connection to the pack. You've transcended it." "What do you mean?" The pack mind link is like a telephone network, everyone connected to everyone else through established channels. But what you're doing is more like broadcasting. You're not limited to the pack's mental frequencies. You can communicate with any wolf who touches your paintings, whether they're part of your pack or not. Theron stepped closer, his expression intense. That's not possible. Pack bonds are species-specific, territorially limited. According to current understanding, yes. But Olivia isn't working within current understanding. She's evolved beyond it. Luna turned to face the princess. How many wolves have touched your paintings? Just you and father. And Uncle Marcus, when he was here last week, asterisk. What happened when Marcus touched one? Olivia's expression grew troubled. Asterisk, he jerked his hand away almost immediately. Said it felt like I was trying to invade his mind, that it was unnatural. Wrong, asterisk. Luna felt the pieces clicking together in her mind, forming a picture that was both wonderful and terrifying. Olivia hadn't just survived the attack that had severed her pack bonds, she developed something far more powerful in response. But power like that would be seen as a threat by wolves who built their authority on controlling traditional communication channels. Olivia, Luna said carefully, I need to ask you about the night your mother died. Do you remember any details about the attack that seemed unusual? The princess went very still, her hands frozen in mid-gesture. Why? Luna glanced at Theron, who nodded grimly. They'd agreed on the way up that Olivia deserved to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Because we believe the attack on you and your mother wasn't random. We think someone specifically targeted you to prevent you from becoming heir to the Pierce bloodline. That's impossible. I was just a child, asterisk. A child who was already showing signs of unusual sensitivity to pack dynamics. Your mother's letters mentioned that you could sense emotions in the pack link before you even shifted for the first time. Olivia sank onto a paint-splattered stool, her face pale with shock. Mother wrote about that? She wrote about a lot of things, Theron said gently. Including her concerns that your abilities were developing too quickly, becoming too noticeable. She was worried about drawing attention to you before you were old enough to protect yourself. And you think someone noticed anyway, asterisk. We think someone saw your potential and decided to eliminate it before you could become a threat to their plans. Luna knelt in front of Olivia's stool, making sure the princess could see her hands clearly. But they failed. They severed your connection to the traditional pack bonds, yes, but they also accidentally created something far more powerful. You're not broken, Olivia. You're evolved. Tears gathered in the princess's eyes, and for a moment she looked like the lost child she'd been 3 years ago. Asterisk, but I still can't be the leader the pack needs. I can't make the connections they expect, asterisk. Maybe that's exactly what they need, Luna interrupted. A leader who isn't limited by traditional pack hierarchies. Someone who can communicate with any wolf, anywhere, regardless of territorial boundaries or political affiliations. Before Olivia could respond, heavy footsteps echoed up the tower stairs. The door burst open without ceremony, and Marcus strode in flanked by 2 wolves Luna didn't recognize, members of the pack council, she realized, their formal ceremonial robes marking them as pack elders. Well, Marcus said, his voice carrying false warmth over steel, isn't this cozy? The Alpha King, his damaged daughter, and their human consultant. Marcus, Theron's voice held a warning that would have made lesser wolves flee. You weren't invited. Actually, I was. By the pack council. Marcus gestured to his companions. Elder Morrison and Elder Chen have some concerns about recent developments in our family dynamic. Elder Morrison stepped forward, his weathered face stern with disapproval. Alpha King, it has come to our attention that you have been allowing a human interpreter unrestricted access to pack territories and sensitive family matters. Luna Celeste is here at my invitation and operates under my direct authority, Theron replied coldly. Authority that may have been compromised, Elder Chen added, her voice like ice. We have reports that this human has been encouraging Princess Olivia's fantasies about her condition. That she's been filling the girl's head with dangerous ideas about alternative forms of pack communication. Luna felt the trap closing around them. Marcus had orchestrated this perfectly, used the pack elder's natural suspicion of humans to turn Olivia's breakthrough into evidence of outside manipulation. What Princess Olivia has discovered is remarkable, Luna said, standing to face the elders directly. She's developed a new form of communication that transcends traditional pack boundaries. Silence, Elder Morrison snapped. You will not speak unless directly questioned. This is pack business, not human business. But Luna was done being silent. 3 years of watching werewolves dismiss anyone who didn't fit their rigid definitions of strength had finally pushed her past her breaking point. This is exactly human business, she said, her voice carrying an authority that surprised even her. Because your rigid adherence to tradition is destroying one of the most gifted individuals your species has ever produced. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus smiled, cold and triumphant. Did you hear that, elders? The human believes she understands werewolf nature better than we do. Believes she can judge our traditions and find them wanting. What I believe, Luna said, stepping protectively in front of Olivia, is that you've allowed fear to blind you to evolution. Olivia Pierce hasn't lost her wolf nature, she's transcended your limited understanding of what wolf nature can be. Elder Chen's eyes flashed amber with supernatural anger. You dare suggest that our sacred bonds, the connections that have sustained our people for millennia, are somehow inferior to a damaged wolf's delusions? I dare suggest that calling her damaged says more about your failures than hers. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus's smile widened, and Luna realized she'd played directly into his hands. Brothers and sisters, Marcus said, addressing the elders with formal protocol, I believe we have sufficient evidence of human interference in pack affairs. This interpreter has clearly overstepped her bounds, attempting to undermine our sacred traditions and corrupt the Alpha King's judgment regarding his daughter's condition. Indeed, Elder Morrison nodded gravely. Such interference cannot be tolerated. I call for a formal pack trial to determine whether Luna Celeste Foster poses a threat to werewolf society and should be expelled from our territories permanently. Luna felt the blood drain from her face. A pack trial was essentially a supernatural court proceeding, where the accused had to prove their innocence before a jury of werewolves who already saw them as an outsider. The penalties for being found guilty of interfering in pack affairs ranged from exile to death, depending on the severity of the offense. This is ridiculous, Theron snarled, his control finally snapping. Luna Celeste has done nothing but help my family. Has she? Marcus interrupted smoothly. Or has she been systematically undermining pack unity by encouraging your daughter to believe her condition is something other than the tragic disability it clearly is? Stop! Olivia signed frantically, her hands moving between Luna and her father. Please, just stop fighting about me. But nobody was watching the princess's hands except Luna, who caught the girl's desperate plea and felt something shift inside her chest, a protective instinct so fierce it made her teeth ache. Fine, Luna said, her voice deadly calm. I accept your trial. But I have conditions. The elders exchanged surprised glances. Humans didn't typically negotiate the terms of their own judgment. You're hardly in a position to make demands, Elder Chen observed. Actually, I am. Because I'm not just some random human you can intimidate into submission. Luna stepped forward, and suddenly the air in the room felt different, charged with an energy that made everyone's skin prickle. I'm Luna Celeste Foster, daughter of Dr. Sarah Foster, the researcher who first documented the existence of dormant shifter genes in apparently human populations. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Marcus looked shaken, his political maneuvering suddenly on much less certain ground. That's impossible, Elder Morrison whispered. Dormant shifters are theoretical. Are they? Luna felt something awakening in her chest, something that had been sleeping her entire life. My mother spent 20 years studying families where werewolf traits skipped generations, where children born to supernatural parents appeared completely human until triggered by specific circumstances. She looked directly at Marcus, seeing the growing alarm in his eyes as he realized his careful trap was about to backfire spectacularly. Circumstances like prolonged exposure to werewolf society. Or silver poisoning that suppresses dormant abilities until they find new ways to manifest. Theron was staring at her with growing wonder and horror. Luna, what are you saying? I'm saying that I'm not entirely human. I'm saying that my ability to bridge the gap between your world and mine isn't just talent, it's genetics. And I'm saying that whoever used Silver to attack Olivia 3 years ago may have been trying to suppress more than just her pack bonds. Luna reached for one of Olivia's paintings, the portrait of Isabella that had shown them such powerful emotions, and pressed her palm against the canvas. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The painting blazed with golden light, but this time it wasn't just Isabella's emotions that flooded the room. It was Luna's own awakening power, her dormant shifter abilities finally breaking free after years of suppression. The air filled with the scent of pine and moonlight, and suddenly everyone could feel what Luna felt when she looked at Olivia, not pity or sympathy, but recognition. The recognition of one evolutionary leap acknowledging another. When the light faded, Luna stood transformed. Not physically, she was still human in appearance, but something fundamental had changed. Her eyes held flecks of gold now, and her presence carried a weight that hadn't been there moments before. "My trial," she said, her voice carrying new harmonics that vibrated through everyone's bones, "will prove more than my loyalty to this pack. It will prove that the old ways of thinking about identity and power are failing you. That dismissing anyone who doesn't fit your rigid categories is making you weaker, not stronger." She looked at Marcus, seeing the calculation behind his shocked expression as he tried to process this new development. "And it will prove that some conspiracies run deeper than simple political ambition. Some attacks on pack members aren't just about eliminating threats, they're about suppressing evolution itself." Luna felt Olivia's hand slip into hers, the princess's touch warm and steady despite everything that had just been revealed. Whatever happened in the trial that was coming, they would face it together. But as she looked around the room at the faces of the wolves who would sit in judgment on her fate, Luna realized that the real battle wasn't going to be proving her loyalty to the pack. It was going to be proving that the pack was worthy of her loyalty in return. Chapter 4. The blood moon rose like a crimson eye over the Pierce estate, casting everything in shades of copper and shadow. Luna stood at the window of her chambers, watching as werewolves from across the western territories gathered in the ceremonial grove below. The pack trial had been scheduled for tonight specifically because of the lunar cycle. During the blood moon, pack bonds were at their strongest, making it easier to sense deception and harder to hide true intentions. It would also make Olivia's abilities more powerful than they'd ever been. "Are you ready for this?" Theron asked from behind her. He'd entered without knocking, a privilege of the condemned that Luna found grimly amusing. "As ready as someone can be for a trial where the jury already believes I'm guilty of corrupting werewolf society." Luna turned to face him, noting the lines of stress that had appeared around his golden eyes over the past week. "How's Olivia?" "Painting." His smile was tight with worry. "She's been working on something since dawn. Won't let me see it, won't explain what it is. Just keeps signing that she needs to be ready." Luna nodded, understanding better than Theron realized. She'd felt it too, the way the approaching blood moon seemed to amplify everything supernatural around them. Her own awakening abilities were stronger tonight, more volatile. She could sense the emotions of every wolf on the estate, could feel the undercurrents of fear and excitement and barely contained violence that ran through the assembled packs like electrical current. "There's something you need to know before we go down there," Luna said quietly. "About what's really happening tonight." Theron's expression sharpened. "What do you mean?" "This isn't just a trial, Theron. It's a coup. Marcus has been planning this for months, maybe years. He's used my presence here as the excuse he needed to challenge your leadership directly. I know that. I've known since the moment he walked into the tower with those elders. But do you know how far he's willing to go?" Luna moved closer, lowering her voice even though her chambers were warded against eavesdropping. "I've been monitoring the pack's emotional currents since my abilities awakened. Marcus has allies positioned throughout the crowd tonight, wolves who are prepared to challenge your right to rule if the trial doesn't go his way." Theron's hands clenched into fists. He wouldn't dare. Not in front of the other pack leaders. It would mean civil war. He's counting on them choosing stability over justice. If he can prove that you've been compromised by human influence, that your judgment regarding Olivia has made you unfit to lead, then challenging you becomes a duty rather than treason. The Alpha King was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. And if he succeeds? Then Olivia dies. Not immediately, Marcus is too smart for that. But he'll have her declared mentally unstable, have her locked away somewhere she can't use her abilities or pose a threat to his version of werewolf purity. Luna felt her awakening wolf instincts snarl at the thought. He'll spend years slowly killing her spirit while claiming it's for her own good. Over my dead body. That can be arranged too, Luna said grimly. An Alpha King who dies defending a human spy and his broken daughter? Marcus becomes a tragic hero who restored order to chaos. Theron stared at her for a moment, then laughed, a sound with no humor in it at all. You know, when I hired you to help me communicate with my daughter, I thought the worst that could happen was political embarrassment. Instead you got evolution. Luna straightened her shoulders, feeling the weight of what was coming. Theron, whatever happens tonight, you need to trust Olivia. Her abilities aren't just growing stronger, they're changing. Becoming something I don't think anyone fully understands yet. Including her. Especially her. But that's what makes her dangerous to people like Marcus. She represents change, progress, the possibility that werewolf society could become something better than what it is. People who profit from the current system will do anything to stop that. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. One of Theron's personal guards entered, his face grim with formality. Alpha King, the Pack Council is ready to begin. They're requesting your presence and that of the accused. Luna felt her stomach twist with nervous energy, but she nodded calmly. Let's go face the wolves. The ceremonial grove had been transformed into a natural amphitheater, with hundreds of werewolves arranged in concentric circles around a raised platform where the Pack Council sat in formal judgment. Torches burned at regular intervals, their flames flickering red in the blood moon's light, and the air hummed with supernatural energy so thick Luna could taste it on her tongue. As she and Theron walked toward the center of the circle, Luna felt the weight of every eye upon them. She could sense the crowd's emotions, curiosity, suspicion, excitement, and underneath it all, a current of barely contained violence that made her newly awakened instinct scream warnings. Marcus stood with the Pack Council, his ceremonial robes marking him as the primary accuser. Beside him, Elder Morrison and Elder Chen watched Luna's approach with expressions of cold disapproval. But it was the other figures on the platform that made Luna's blood run cold. Alpha Vladimir Blackthorn had arrived, flanked by his own personal guard and wearing the kind of smile that promised bloodshed. The accused will present herself for judgment, Elder Morrison announced, his voice carrying across the grove with supernatural amplification. Luna stepped forward, but before she could speak, a commotion at the edge of the crowd drew everyone's attention. Olivia was making her way through the assembled werewolves, carrying something large and covered by a paint-stained cloth. Her formal dress was splattered with fresh paint, and her dark hair was wild from hours of frantic work. Father, she signed as she approached the platform. I need to show them something. Princess Olivia, Elder Chen's voice carried disapproval. This is a formal pack trial. Your presence is not required. But Olivia ignored the elder completely, her attention focused on Luna with an intensity that made the air around them shimmer with power. Luna, she signed, her movements quick and urgent. I understand now. What you are, what I am, what we're supposed to become. The blood moon showed me. Showed you what? Luna asked, her voice carrying clearly in the supernatural silence. Instead of answering, Olivia pulled away the cloth covering her burden. Underneath was a canvas unlike any Luna had seen before, massive, easily 6 feet square, covered in swirling patterns of color that seemed to move and breathe in the moonlight. But it wasn't the size that took Luna's breath away. It was the subject matter. The painting showed werewolves, dozens of them, but not as they appeared in the grove tonight. These wolves were connected by threads of light that weren't the traditional pack bonds Luna had seen in Olivia's other work. These connections were more complex, more beautiful. They flowed between individuals based on understanding and choice rather than hierarchy and dominance. And at the center of it all, 2 figures stood hand in hand, a woman with gold-flecked eyes and a girl whose silence spoke louder than any howl. What is this? Marcus demanded, his carefully controlled composure cracking slightly. This is what we could be, Olivia signed, her movements visible to the entire crowd. Not pack bonds based on submission and mental domination, but connections based on genuine understanding. Emotional truth. Chosen family rather than enforced loyalty. Luna felt something stirring in her chest, her awakening abilities responding to the painting's power even from a distance. Around the grove, other wolves were beginning to react as well, some with wonder, others with fear or anger at the challenge to their fundamental beliefs. This is heresy, Elder Morrison declared. Pack bonds are sacred, ordained by nature itself. They cannot be replaced by human sentiment and artistic fantasy. Can't they? Luna stepped toward the painting, and immediately the air around her began to shimmer with the same energy that had manifested in the tower. What if everything you think you know about pack bonds is wrong? What if they're not sacred traditions but limitations you've imposed on yourselves? She reached toward the canvas, and Olivia nodded encouragingly. The moment Luna's palm touched the painted surface, the world exploded into possibility. The vision that flooded the grove was unlike anything anyone had experienced. Through Olivia's artistic medium and Luna's hybrid nature, every wolf present suddenly felt what true connection could be like, not the hierarchical mind links they'd always known, but something deeper and more honest. Emotional bonds based on mutual respect, chosen rather than imposed, strengthening individuals instead of subsuming them into group consciousness. For a moment, the entire pack experienced unity without domination, connection without control. They felt what Olivia felt, the loneliness of being excluded, but also the joy of genuine understanding. They felt what Luna felt, the bridge between worlds, the possibility of being fully yourself while still belonging to something larger. When the vision faded, the grove was silent except for the crackle of torches and the whisper of wind through leaves. Many of the wolves looked stunned, overwhelmed by the experience of genuine emotional connection. Others looked angry or frightened, their worldviews challenged by what they'd just witnessed. Marcus was the first to recover, his political instincts overriding his shock. Sorcery, he snarled. The human has used some form of magic to manipulate our minds, to make us believe her corrupted vision of pack bonds. It's not corruption, Luna replied, her voice carrying new harmonics that resonated through everyone present. It's evolution. What you just experienced is what werewolf society could become if you stopped fearing change and started embracing growth. Growth? Vladimir Blackthorn stepped forward, his voice dripping with contempt. You call the destruction of sacred traditions growth? You call turning our people into something unrecognizable progress? I call it survival, Luna shot back. Because your sacred traditions are killing you. How many wolves have been cast out for not fitting your narrow definitions? How many potential leaders have been dismissed because they didn't conform to your expectations? How many Olivias have you destroyed because you were too afraid to accept that strength comes in many forms? The crowd stirred restlessly, Luna's words hitting closer to home than many wanted to admit. Every pack had its outcasts, its members who didn't quite fit the mold, its lost potential sacrificed to the altar of tradition. Enough, Theron's voice cut through the growing murmur of voices. This trial was called to determine Luna Celeste's loyalty to our pack and our way of life. I believe we have our answer. He stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention from every wolf in the grove. Luna Celeste Foster has shown us that loyalty doesn't require blind obedience to tradition. That strength doesn't demand the suppression of those who are different. That love, for family, for pack, for the possibility of something better, is more powerful than fear. Marcus's face twisted with rage. Brother, you've been bewitched by this creature. She's not even fully human. She's an abomination that threatens everything we are. Everything we were, Theron corrected. But perhaps not everything we could become. The Alpha King turned to address the entire assembled crowd, his voice carrying the authority of absolute leadership. For too long, we've measured worth by conformity. We've demanded that every wolf fit the same mold, think the same thoughts, submit to the same hierarchies. And in doing so, we've weakened ourselves. We've lost innovation, creativity, the very diversity that could make us stronger. He gestured toward Olivia, who stood beside her revolutionary painting like a prophet of change. My daughter was attacked 3 years ago by enemies who sought to destroy our bloodline. They used silver weapons designed to sever pack bonds, believing that a wolf who couldn't access the traditional mind link would be powerless. They were wrong. Luna watched as understanding began to dawn on faces throughout the crowd. The revelation that Olivia's condition was the result of an attack rather than genetic weakness was changing how many saw her. Olivia didn't lose her wolf nature, she transcended it. She developed abilities that make traditional pack bonds look primitive by comparison. She can communicate with any wolf, regardless of pack affiliation or territorial boundaries. She can share emotions and memories across species lines. She represents the future of what we could become. Impossible, Elder Chen protested. Pack bonds are genetically determined, territorially limited. According to current understanding, Luna interrupted. But understanding evolves. Science progresses. What you call impossible, I call inevitable. She turned to face the crowd directly, her awakening abilities lending weight to every word. I am living proof that the categories you use to define identity are too narrow. I was raised human, lived human, believed myself human until I came here. But exposure to your world awakened something in my genetics that had been dormant for generations. I am not fully human, but I'm not fully wolf either. I am something new. The grove erupted in whispers and arguments, wolves struggling to process revelations that challenged their fundamental assumptions about identity and belonging. Marcus seized the moment of confusion, his voice rising above the chaos. Do you hear this? This human, this thing, admits she is an abomination. Admits she seeks to transform us into something unnatural, unholy. I seek to transform you into something better, Luna replied calmly. Something that doesn't require the exile or execution of anyone who doesn't fit predetermined molds. She looked directly at Marcus, seeing the desperation behind his anger. But you already know that, don't you? You've known from the beginning that Olivia's abilities were real, that they represented a threat to your vision of werewolf purity. That's why you arranged for her to be attacked. The accusation hit the crowd like a lightning strike. Every conversation stopped, every eye turned toward Marcus, who had gone very still and very pale. That's a lie, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Is it? Luna stepped closer, her hybrid senses picking up the scent of fear and guilt that suddenly surrounded him. You had access to Isabella's research about Olivia's developing abilities. You knew the patrol routes, knew when mother and daughter would be most vulnerable. And you certainly had the connections to arrange for rogues with silver weapons to be in the right place at the right time. You have no proof. I have this, Olivia said, her voice carrying clearly across the grove for the first time in 3 years. Every head turned toward the princess in shock. She had spoken aloud, her voice rusty from disuse but unmistakably clear. I remember, she continued, her words gaining strength with each syllable. The attack. The rogues knew exactly where to strike to sever pack bonds without killing. They knew which silver compound would cause permanent damage. And they knew about the emergency beacon that would bring help just quickly enough to save me but too late to save mother. Marcus was backing away now, his composure completely shattered. You were unconscious. Head trauma. You can't possibly remember. I remember everything, Olivia replied. Because I painted it. Every detail, every face, every word they spoke about the wolf who paid them to target the Alpha King's heir. She gestured toward a smaller canvas that had been hidden behind the large painting, a work that showed the attack in horrifying detail, including faces that several wolves in the crowd immediately recognized. Those rogues, Elder Morrison whispered, his face gone ashen. They were seen in the territories last month. Asking questions about pack defenses, about succession laws. Under whose orders? Luna demanded. All eyes turned to Marcus, who looked like a cornered animal. For a moment, Luna thought he might confess, might throw himself on the pack's mercy and hope for exile instead of execution. Instead, he chose to fight. Even if that were true, he snarled, his form beginning to shimmer as he prepared to shift, it changes nothing. Olivia is still broken. Still unfit to rule. Still a threat to everything we are. No, Theron said quietly. She's a promise of everything we could become. The Alpha King stepped forward, placing himself between Marcus and the crowd. I hereby banish Marcus Pierce from the Western Territories for conspiracy, treason, and the murder of Luna Queen Isabella. Any who follow him choose exile over evolution. Marcus's laugh was harsh and bitter. You think it's over? You think accepting these abominations will save you? There are other packs, other alphas who understand what you're trying to destroy. Vladimir. But when Marcus looked toward his ally, he found empty space. Blackthorn and his guards had vanished into the night, abandoning their co-conspirator to face the consequences alone. It seems your revolution lacks popular support, Luna observed dryly. Marcus's response was to complete his transformation, shifting into a massive black wolf with silver-tipped fur. He launched himself at Olivia, clearly intending to eliminate the threat she represented even if it cost him his life. He never reached her. Luna moved faster than should have been possible for someone so newly awakened to her supernatural nature. She intercepted Marcus mid-leap, her own partial transformation turning her hands into claws that could match his strength. They crashed to the ground in a tangle of fury and desperation, rolling across the ceremonial platform in a fight that represented far more than personal conflict. It was old versus new, tradition versus evolution, fear versus hope. The battle was brief but vicious. Marcus had decades of experience and the desperate strength of someone with nothing left to lose. But Luna had something more powerful, the righteous fury of someone protecting family, and the hybrid advantages that came from being something entirely new. When the dust settled, Marcus lay unconscious at her feet, his wolf form reverting to human as Luna's claws pressed against his throat. It's over, she said simply. The grove fell silent again, but this time the quality of the silence was different. Instead of tension and conflict, there was a sense of possibility, of doors opening onto unexplored territory. Theron stepped onto the platform, his voice carrying clearly across the assembled crowd. Tonight has shown us that change is not just possible, it's inevitable. We can either embrace evolution or be destroyed by our refusal to grow. He gestured toward Luna and Olivia, who stood together at the center of it all, the hybrid bridge between worlds and the revolutionary artist who could paint new realities. I hereby establish the Pierce Foundation for Wolf Evolution, with Luna Celeste Foster as its director and Princess Olivia Pierce as its first researcher. Their mission will be to explore new forms of supernatural communication, to support wolves whose abilities don't fit traditional categories, and to help our people adapt to a changing world. The crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and protests, but the cheers were louder. Change was frightening, but the alternative, stagnation and slow decay, was worse. As the immediate chaos died down, Luna noticed movement at the edge of the grove. Wolves were approaching, not members of established packs, but individuals who moved with the careful hesitancy of those who'd been rejected or cast out. They were drawn by what they'd witnessed tonight, by the promise that there might finally be a place for those who didn't fit conventional molds. A young man with scars across his face that suggested silver poisoning similar to Olivia's. A woman whose eyes held the haunted look of someone whose pack bonds had been severed by trauma. An elderly wolf whose abilities had been dismissed as too different to be valuable. They came forward one by one, hope and trepidation warring in their expressions as they approached the platform where Luna and Olivia stood. "Can you really help us?" the scared young man asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can you teach us to be something other than broken?" Olivia stepped forward, her newly restored voice warm with compassion. "You were never broken. You were just ahead of your time." She gestured toward her revolutionary painting, which still glowed softly with residual power in the blood moon's light. "We're going to learn together. All of us. How to build connections based on choice rather than compulsion, how to find strength in difference rather than conformity, how to create a pack structure that celebrates individual gifts instead of demanding they be hidden." Luna watched as more wolves approached, drawn by the promise of acceptance and the possibility of belonging without surrendering their authentic selves. This was what true revolution looked like, not violent overthrow, but the patient work of building something better from the ground up. As the blood moon began to set and dawn approached, Luna realized that everything had changed. The werewolf world would never be the same, and neither would she. The frightened human interpreter who had attended Theron's coronation was gone, replaced by something new, a bridge between worlds, a catalyst for evolution, a guardian of those who dared to be different. Beside her, Olivia began sketching in a small notebook, already planning her next painting. But this one wouldn't depict isolation or longing. This one would show connection, genuine, chosen, revolutionary connection between beings who had found their pack not through blood or tradition, but through the simple recognition that they belonged together. The age of the silent princess was over. The age of the wolf evolution had begun. And Luna Celeste Foster, hybrid daughter of two worlds, would help guide them all into whatever came next. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.